everybody, welcome to another episode of Repeater. My name is Evan Barden. I'm joined as always by Pat Cartelli. Pat, what's up?
Oh, just sitting here on a really hot New York day. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Yes, it is a hot New York day here in New York, where and when we are recording. And summer is definitely upon us. That is for sure. I just got back from Vermont though, and I was telling Pat.
Nice.
Yeah, I was telling Pat just before we got on. It's a nice 10 degrees cooler up there. It's really kind of like really keyed into summer weather right now in Vermont. If anyone has a chance to get up there,
that sounds nice.
It's real nice. And for listeners, that other voice you're hearing today, we are joined by singer, songwriter, and musician Annie Keating. Annie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We talk to a lot of comedians and actors and writers on this show, and I would say every once in a while, Pat, we get to talk to a bona fide musician about music. In fact, I think the last episode we have out, when this drops, will have been also with a musician, Eric Garlington of the band Proper.
Nice.
But boy, is it exciting to talk to real musicians who know their stuff.
I love it.
Because we are amateurs, and we always want to emphasize that to anybody. We're fans. We're fans. But yeah, it's really nice to have you on, Annie.
Oh, it's great to be on nothing I like more than talking about music. So
yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
We always get started with something we've been listening to recently, some kind of music rec. Pat, what do you have for us this week?
Well, shocking everybody, the thing that I have been listening to is the new Mountain Goats record released, and I came to my front door the other day, a few days early. I feel like most episodes we record, the Mountain Goats are like the song I recommend, but
I think this might be Mountain Goats number 3 for this season so far. So you're on a good pace.
There are 3 albums that came out in the past year, so it's working in my advantage. But I would recommend the song Dark in Here. Really enjoy the lyrics. I just watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid for the first time.
Okay.
And it
classic.
Yes. Love it. And that song very much.
But who's cuter is the question. Who's cuter? Is it Paul Newman or Robert Redford?
I mean,
it's tough.
It's tough. Paul Newman has the.
I know who's cuter for me, but I don't know.
I mean, I've been thinking a lot about that bicycle scene, and that's a pretty cute scene. So,
well, Pat, I think we need you to pick. I think that's what Andy's saying. You got to weigh in. I mean, we obviously both have our votes locked in.
Yeah.
But can you start us off?
Oh, sure. I'm gonna go Paul Newman on that.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, nice. Newman,
cool hand Luke,
truly incredibly handsome, hard to beat. Unless you're Robert Redford, and in that case, that's going to be my pick.
That's my pick too, man. I'm with you.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
there are a couple of heartthrobs. It's no denying that.
It's tough. Yeah, that was not easy.
Yeah, Pat, you're not wrong. It's just we have different opinions. That's all.
Yeah, I'm okay being outnumbered on that.
But I got so excited by this, I might have missed. How does that movie connect to this new Mountain Goats album?
It very much. It seems like an album of characters that are all running from something or have escaped something or maybe are in the midst of escaping from something. And it very much reminds me of so the song Dark in Here very much reminds me of the last scene in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out right after this.
Yeah, that also sounds like a good 1-2 kind of media punch,
Yeah.
Watch a movie, listen to a new album, or vice versa. A classic and a new one.
Connect it.
Yeah, exactly. What I've been listening to lately, and this is a beautiful coincidence. It's a little bit of a preview for what the big song we're going to talk about today. But I've been really listening a lot to "You Never Even Called Me by My Name" by David Allan Coe.
Oh, yes.
Which is it's a pretty funny song. It's kind of I don't know, much beloved, much hated by country music, maybe kind of both. But the reason I've been listening to it a lot recently is if anyone's listening to this show and they like to hear people talk about music, I cannot recommend enough Tyler Mahan Co.'s podcast, Cocaine and Rhinestones. He tracks the history of country music in the 20th century, and he, a few weeks ago, I think he just re-released or maybe unlocked from his Patreon a video right before the new season of Cocaine and Rhinestones dropped. He a new video of him explaining and talking about this song, because his father is David Allan Coe, and he's kind of talking about
wow, that's so cool.
He's kind of talking about the story of how this song came to be, the kind of legacy that it has. It's really a deep dive on how this song got written, and I think despite David Allan Coe making this song really famous, it was sort of secretly, I'll put in quotes, written by John Prine and Steve Goodman, who kind of didn't want much association with it after the fact, which was all part of the story. So I've been listening to that song and I think appreciating it in a new way, because it is, I don't know, it's almost like a parody song of its day, but wildly popular.
Can I tell you something funny about that?
Yeah, please.
This is a true story. So I have a new album out, and I wrote all the songs. I wrote 15 songs between March and October. And one of the things that inspired the album, especially the country songs, there's a song I wrote called Hank's Saloon, which is very much like an old school. I just wanted to do like a fun country song. Mm-hmm. And it was inspired by this dear friend who I met. We moved out of Brooklyn and relocated for 5 months and met some very kind people who kind of took us in and forged these sort of intense connections in this bizarro period of isolation and hardship. So this person made me a playlist, or shared a playlist with me, that was called You Never Even Called Me By My Name. And the funny thing is I thought he was pissed off at me because his name is Chris, but I was calling him Christopher. Because, some people, it just seems like you're not a Chris, you're just more of a Christopher to me. Right. So, and I thought he was like mad, and that's why he'd like sent me this playlist, and he's like, no, Christopher's fine. It's just, that's the title of the first song. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's kind of weird that you said that, because it was like, that tune kind of launched my journey a little bit. Oh, I hadn't written a song for like a year, and I was like walking around listening to this playlist of like 100 old time great country songs. And anyway, so.
Oh, I love that then. I love that. Yeah.
There that is.
There's something in the ether right now, I think,
Yeah, there is. Definitely.
That's cool. That's really cool. But yeah, so anyone out there listening, definitely, well, first of all, give a listen to that song, because it's a good time. And then look up Taylor Mahan Coe's explanation of what's going on in that song, and check out his podcast.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that Cocaine and Rhinestones.
Cocaine and Rhinestones. He does a real great job. He grew up around this stuff because his dad's a country star, and it's a good mix of his own experience, and then he has just become like an absolute historian on 20th century music.
Oh, that's
like
so cool.
He's just dug in and he's done this whole thing himself, and it's a really great project.
Do you guys also do Song Exploder?
Oh yeah. Song Exploder is so good.
That's a good one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think in some ways it's almost like you want to do Song Exploder for the birth of George Jones. That's kind of like almost what he does. He's like, let's pull apart how George Jones got here.
Totally.
It's cool. Really cool show.
Awesome.
Annie, what's something you've been listening to recently?
I've been listening to Chuck Prophet. I hadn't listened to him that much in that song. It's Summertime Thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know that song?
No, I don't know it.
It's great. It's just like such a sexy song.
Yeah.
And it puts me in the summertime mindset. So yeah, that's one thing that kind of turned my head.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know exactly when he wrote it. If it was like a year ago or 3 years, I'm not sure. But
a good summer song, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a good summer song, and that's kind of what I've been needing right now.
What do you think? What do you kind of think the anatomy of a summer song is? Sexy seems to be it's helpful, certainly.
Yeah, sexy seems to be that. Yeah, and also like it just makes you want to sing along, makes you want to roll down the car window, makes you want to like get that cold beer in hand, makes you want to get happy.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a happy song.
Right.
But it makes you want to, look for that good time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The high energy.
I think that tune will definitely make you want to, roll down the car window and feel the hot breeze on your face and, get to the ocean.
That's perfect. Yeah. Any song that inspires you to get to the ocean. That's definitely a summer song.
I think so.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love, hey, anyone listening, truly, if you have summer song suggestions, get at us because we want to hear them. We should, maybe Pat and I will throw together a nice little summer song playlist.
Oh yeah,
we could start it off with some Chuck Prophet. That'd be really great because it's a mood, and
that is a great idea.
And it is here. All right, well, that's on us now. We got to do that. It's coming out soon.
Can't wait to hear it.
I wrote it down.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. Annie, what is the song that we're going to talk about today?
All right. The song that we are going to talk about today is from my favorite songwriter, tragically lost to COVID, John Prine. And it's, I think, if I'm not getting this wrong, it was the last song that he wrote, called I Remember Everything. And, for me, in some ways it's funny, because we're talking about summertime songs. In some ways it is a summertime song. In some ways it's kind of an end of summertime song, trying to figure out which it is. Because there's this great line in it that says, your ocean eyes of blue, I miss you in the morning light, like the roses miss the dew, which I'm going to get back to that, so just hold that in your mind for a second. Yeah. But the other line is, swimming pools of butterflies that slipped right through the net. And it's this so that to me is a summer image. You know what I mean? All these butterflies, and it's magic. It's like magic in the swimming pool. What a great way to say that. But they slip through the net, which is kind of fall, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the thing, when he says that line, I miss you in the morning light, like the roses miss the dew, it just gets me in my chest every time. It's you could say the roses miss the sunshine, the sun, the water, the rain, but dew is such a tender word. And it's so for me, knocks it out of the park that he says that. I don't know. I would never think to say that in a song. I would never use the word dew, but that's the genius of John. Right. He's so tender and lighthearted and funny and vulnerable and, oh God.
Yeah. I mean, it's often right when things are being missed. It's often the smallest things that register the most for us. We miss the small things people do. We miss the small things about a place. And to a large extent, I think probably what people miss about John Prine are small turns of phrase like that, such delicate, perfectly placed lyricism. It's tough. It's a great lyric, and from somebody who, it's no surprise that we get that from him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And who else is, the kind of songwriter that's going to write a song, as a younger man that starts with, I am an old woman. Named after my mama, make me an angel from the Rise from Montgomery, right?
Yeah.
Make me a poster of an old rodeo. Where's to get it? He inhabits other characters, and he also inhabits his own. Yeah, one of the things I love about John Prine is that he as the story goes, he got some of his best material by being a mailman for years. So what a good way to catch stories, right? Imagine him delivering mail with his little butterfly net, kind of watching people and thinking about their stories.
Who's getting what in the post?
Yeah, right.
Well, and it's so interesting watching how John uses words and can very succinctly world build. Because this song, to me, if we're talking about summer songs, this kind of, to me, feels like a late summer evening, maybe the sun is setting, but you get it out of just such a tiny part of the lyrics, and it just paints the picture.
Oh, it does. And that's the thing too, is he can be so funny. He's the only songwriter who makes me just laugh out loud and then cry out loud, Yeah. And my daughter actually was very sweet. Been having sort of a lot of stuff going on, there's COVID and there's the pandemic, which thankfully is hopefully nearly behind us, but also in my personal world. And so on Mother's Day, she wanted to give me something. And so she sat me down and she said, "Can I give you my Mother's Day gift?" She's 18. And I said, "Yeah, sure. Love it." And she sat down at the piano, which is actually right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And she sat down at the piano and she said, "Okay, close your eyes." And she started playing this song.
Oh.
And she did this unbelievable, playing and singing rendition of "I Remember Everything." And I was just so crying. Because I thought, what a sweet gift, she paid attention to know it's my current favorite song, and she learned it for her old mother. And anyway, it was really nice.
That's lovely.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, it was a good Mother's Day gift.
Yeah, something that I think about with this song as well. And speaking of John Prine's career, is there's a lot of artists I think we either pay less attention to as they age, right, as they get older, and there's some artists that maybe we feel legitimately or not, maybe they fall off their prime. And John this is the last song he wrote, and he wrote a killer, right? He's just continued putting out amazing music.
Yeah, he's kind of the definition of fine wine, right? I mean, he also had a comeback. I mean, I think he kind of was off the radar for a while. And then, it was like rearing back, in his, whatever, 60s, 70s. Yeah. The other thing, just, true story, and maybe it's part of the reason subconsciously I picked this song or I'm thinking about it, but I hadn't written, but before the pandemic, I got out of Brooklyn with my family as I said, in March, because things were pretty bad here. And I relocated to my mom's cottage in Bristol County, Massachusetts, which is why the new album's called Bristol County Tides. But I hadn't written a song for like a year. And I tend to, once I finish a record, I'm like, okay, I don't think I have another one in me. I'm done. I'm never going to make an album again. And I was very lucky to be inspired. And so this is the 8th full length, but I have 2 EPs. Anyway, I hadn't been writing, but when John Prine got sick, something shifted in me. I mean, there were other things that I was, as I said, I was inspired and learning about the tides, and I got a little boat, and I was like, my dog learned to swim, my son learned to fish, I learned to captain this boat out to the sea, and it was a very lush kind of awakening, a time of awakening amidst the pandemic backdrop. So that was intense. But anyway, getting to the John Prine point, when he got sick, I remember thinking, I got to pick up my guitar, and it's enough. I got to, I want to do a song a day, a John Prine song a day while he's in the hospital, just to send out the love on my YouTube channel, and on Instagram and stuff. So I was playing a song of his every day, which is not always easy because some of his songs are hard to learn. Yeah. All the best, finger picking is very hard. So it kind of got me focused on playing again. And I was trying to learn these hard songs, and I was trying to put them out there, put the love out there for John Prine. And that's when I started writing. So, he was part of my reawakening in terms of this album for sure. And I remember when he died, I think he did an interview with Jason Isbell not long before he died. And one of the things he said when Jason Isbell asked him, what's this, the kind of secret to it all, marriage, happiness, songwriting? And he was like, stay vulnerable, open and true. And I thought that word, a lot of times, especially with the world of toxic masculinity, vulnerability is not a positive word, right? We try not to be vulnerable. Right. But I think him saying that, it was just so And I thought a lot about that at the time. And I thought, okay, in terms of my own songwriting now, I want to aspire to John Prine. I want to like try for that open, true, authentic vulnerability. I'm going to let it in. And because I'm like, I write from my core. I'm like an emotional songwriter. I don't really write from here as much. So that was very compelling. I would kind of took it on as a challenge to try and write as open and vulnerable as I could.
Yeah. It's interesting to, hear about him talking with someone like Jason Isbell. Because I think about Prine was always a little bit of an outsider, right, to the country world, and obviously some overlap there. But I wonder if his willingness to be vulnerable was a part of that. Because you talk about toxic masculinity, and there's a lot of that, I think, in the music world in general for years and years and years. Especially with country music, which is some of the saddest, most vulnerable music out there. But my bet is that off stage, a lot of those guys don't want to talk about the stuff that they're singing about on stage. If I had to paint in really, really broad strokes, But somebody like Prine was kind of always an outsider from that. And it's probably a bit because of, his willingness to be vulnerable. And then you see how it influences a new generation. Like Isbell and his, whatever you want to call it, like the folks that came up with him, I think are really willing to be vulnerable in a way that Prine was probably one of the direct influences of that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for sure. That's true. I also love his humility, like just so humble and like in the best way. I think I'm pretty sure this is correct. I read an interview with him where he said he only has one review framed in his house, and it's in his bathroom, and it's like one of the first reviews of his early work where it trashed him. It was like basically said like, why would this crooner try and like put songs into the world? He like can't sing, got it, this terrible voice. And I love that's like framed in his bathroom, right? Like all the incredibly, positive reviews. I mean, John Prine is so loved, but that's the one he picks.
Yeah.
To look at like when he's going number 1 or 2.
Yeah, that is a beautiful level of humility. all the kind things that have been written about him for so long too.
Exactly.
Yeah, keep that there.
Now I'm going to take this one, put it in the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Frame it.
I mean, it's really wonderful that, that kind of journey going through his music for you was a jumping off point.
Yeah, it really was.
I mean, I don't know what your sort of higher beliefs are or anything like that, but there's a lot of people, I feel like especially musicians will talk about, like sometimes there's just energy out there being exchanged. And some people describe it, I know, as sort of like the songs are up there, you grab yours and you hope to hang on to it for a bit. But also with this passing of someone like John Prine, you wonder kind of like, well, does that redistribute? Like where does that energy go?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a big believer in that it's like all kind of interconnected. I don't know if it's, past lives or there's actually one of the people I met while I was on this road. You meet there. I have a song called Kindred Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that often that it happens, but you guys can probably relate when you meet somebody and it's just this instant like, whoa, I've seen you before. You know what I mean? Like, I know you, like your eyes are like familiar. And there's a line in the tune that says, searching for forgiveness for a crime you never did commit, but serve the time for it anyhow, because it's easier to take the blame than admit the ways that others failed you growing up in a broken way somehow. And then the first verse, there's a sadness about where you've been. I feel it coming off your skin, a look behind your eyes like you've been stung. But I guess what I'm saying is like sometimes you meet somebody where it's like you recognize it's like echoes of your own past.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or echoes of their past in you. And a funny thing happened with this particular person is who's a very strong together, not sensitive sort of guy.
Mhm.
But when he heard one of these songs, it was one of the first ones I wrote, it just brought him crying. Like, just, and I think music has this way of it can just get right to your core,
Mhm.
and there's, when you were talking about energy, like where does John Prine's energy go? I mean, I just think it's this, so much of what we do and how we move through the world affects another person, affects other things. And I do believe that music at its best is connection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've had a lot of people with this Kindred Spirit song. Part of the reason I belabored the lyrics, I've had like a lot of emotional reaction about that particular tune. Like people DMing me or like messaging me, like, I know you don't know me, so you couldn't have written that song about me or for me, but it feels like you did.
Yeah.
So like, because it like so resonates. And like, for me, that's the greatest compliment. If I can have like somebody say to me, not somebody I know, but somebody I don't know, say to me like, oh man, that like moved me. That got me in my chest. Then it's like, okay. That's the greatest sort of compliment, I think,
Yeah.
to a songwriter.
Yeah. Having never written a song, it's always super interesting to me to, first of all, think about what happens to a song once it goes out there. The difference between like playing it in your house for yourself versus other people receiving it. Like they are intaking the art. That must be such an exciting place to be in. And just to say to you, in listening to your album, there are multiple people, characters, whatever we want to refer to them as, that I found myself going, oh, I want to know more about that person. Like
Mhm.
they were there, and I really liked that about this. And it felt like it felt as if I was going somewhere and like traveling and just getting vignettes of people to a place I've never been, but a place that felt familiar.
Oh, cool.
So that was really cool.
Yeah, great. Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I also think that some of the best writing for me, or some of my favorite albums, have this like specificity, but it's also universal. Like, so I can be talking about these characters, or I can be talking about learning about the tides, and but you may, when you hear the word like Blue Moon Tide, or you're listening to the song, you're going to bring your own experience to like what does that conjure up for you in terms of your memories of being by the ocean, of tides, of maybe being on a boat yourself or whatever. And one of the things I like is that we kind of, two things. One is bring our own experience to somebody else's song, but then we also kind of enter and occupy their experience. Like if you're a sensitive listener, which you are, you're actually like, oh, what is the other person trying to say to me? Not just like, what does this bring up in terms of my own memories or life? But yeah, I mean, I think about somebody like Neil Young, who, like a song like After the Gold Rush. I was lying in a burned out basement, with the blue moon in my eyes or whatever. What are the lyrics where the friend tells a lie, burnt out basement. And he's great at like, he has these really specific things that I kind of have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Powder finger and, but you kind of know, because it's this universal feeling that he kind of gets across. He's a very raw writer, I think, in that way.
Yeah.
But I love that. I mean, so that's something I strive towards, is like, what actually I think is evocative and gets to universal feelings of longing or loneliness or love is actually specificity, ironically.
Yeah.
Because it's like going back to the Prine song. When he says something like the swimming pools of butterflies that slip right through the net.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we know that, oh boy, I feel that in my chest.
Yeah.
Whereas if he said any number of other things that weren't that, it would not land as emotional. Wouldn't have the specificity that creates that image.
I think with a lot of lyrics, if the listener has a little bit of a question, sometimes that is the most effective. Almost like, where did that image come from with the songwriter? Or what exactly do they mean by that? I know that I have my interpretation, but it's so specific sometimes that you're not exactly sure what they mean. And I think sometimes that's the most effective because it really does draw you in, like has you lean in, right? It has you curious about what's going on, while also, you understand it well enough. And that's a really beautiful and fine powerful line to be able to walk. Yeah. I wanted to ask too, because that really resonates with me when you're saying, somebody you don't know reaches out, they find that this song really hit them. What is it like for you as an artist to play that song for the actual person that song is inspired by or for, Do you get nervous? Do you feel a responsibility? Do you feel like it's like, showing them love,
Oh, so you mean if like in the example I gave you, if there's and to play it for them either at a show or just a recording of it to them.
Or even know that they listen to it, for example.
I think it's really powerful. I mean, it's more, I would say what you just said, it's showing them love.
Mm.
And in fact, if somebody has an intense reaction like that, to me, it's an opportunity to connect and to say, okay, wait, let's talk about that. Like, where did that song land for you?
Mm-hmm.
Like if that was like a kind of direct hit to your present or to your past, because a lot of times I think it's the past too that it's being tapped into. Then it's like a way to kind of open up to each other. Like, what did that tap into? Tell me, like, my idea of a podcast that I want to do is the Overshare with Annie K. Oversharing.
Yes,
because I like to get to the heart of that.
You like big talk, not small talk. Like,
yeah,
let's
exactly.
get in there.
I mean, there's the weather, and that's cool, and whatever. But I feel like in my songs and in stuff like this, it's really fun to get to the meat of it.
For sure. And it feels like, even kind of circling back to vulnerability, playing a song for someone. Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, that is sharing a part of you. And for some reason, I mean this in a way that's not even like, hey, the song, you're included in it, there's lyrics that are about you. It's also just willing to say that to that, like to present it to them. Just the act of presenting it, I think in and of itself is vulnerable, because how many artists have created something inspired by someone and they know that they've seen it, they know that it's gotten around, it's gotten back to them somehow. But how many of them sit with the person or say, hey, I did this. And that in and of itself is this like extremely vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's totally something that you think they'll love, because
there's always the potential for rejection.
Of course.
And so,
yes.
And there's not, other than maybe, there's not much more kind of open and raw as a song that's like has a lot of emotion in it, and then if somebody shoots that down or for some reason that doesn't resonate, you're like, oh damn, like that was a miss. That was a miss. Luckily, that hasn't happened to me personally, but the other thing I think that's interesting is, people ask me a lot, like, is that autobiographical?
Mm-hmm.
And is that about, this time? Like, they kind of always want to know, like, what's it about? And one of the things for me is, it is about, nothing is ever just about one person or one thing. one place.
Yeah.
Because we come at our experience from so many millions of moments that have made, me who I am now. So if I were to take a song like on my record, the last song on the album is called Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through a hard time when I came back from being away, trying to figure out how to re-enter my life and had just stuff going on personally. And so there's a line in it that says, "Days are long now, so much longer than they ever used to feel. I'm alone, but getting stronger. Feels like I'm walking on a broken heel." That's a painful line.
Yeah.
Painful. But that was like the only way for me to express. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
I was like, but okay, so walking on a broken heel, was that about missing somebody? Yes. Was that also about, hearkening back to my past, a little bit of a violent, like it's some tough stuff growing up. And my father, who died when I was 27, like, it's not as simple as, oh, that line and that song, it's about missing somebody. It's also about, my past and reckoning with some things. And that's what I think is so interesting about songwriting is it's multidimensional. You're dealing with lyrics and melodies and colors and instruments. And depending on all these choices you make, is the organ going to come in? Is it going to be a beautiful piano? Is it going to be a slide guitar that has a whole nother feeling? All those choices and colors, affect the feeling that the listener's going to have. I love that. It feels endless to me, endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking too, Bristol County Tides, you kind of set it up like you left New York. There was this period of time, you're re-inspired, and it seems, in a way, right, this is an album that's a bit of a time capsule. And then as you share and as we talk with you, well, it's also this confluence of how much else, how many things outside of that place and that time are also included in that album. It's really, it's special, I think, to be able to, I mean, special in the way of, as people that listen to music closely, it's nice to have those moments of saying, like, yes, we can zoom in and we can take this as a moment, and we can also zoom out and take this as, a check-in along a timeline, a summation of what's happened so far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, what I started to feel from it, first of all, I was loving the slide guitars. I was loving
the slide guitar.
And what I assume was like a really dirty sounding Telecaster or something like that. The instrumentation I was fawning over.
Well, let me just give a shout out, don't lose your thought, to Teddy Kumpel, my producer, because he's just a god.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a god. Teddy, if you listen to this, I'm beyond blessed. So he pulled it,
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
He pulled the band.
Shout outs to Teddy. I loved it.
Teddy Kumpel.
But going off of what we've been talking about, and like this being a time capsule, it does. I mean, anything an artist creates is the summation of their existence, right? Like when I put my pen to the paper, it's my lived experience coming out is how I'm interpreting it. And what's great about what we're talking about is we're all going through something right now that is historically bad, and everybody is like turning inward and self-reflecting. And I think it's such a treasure that you were able to take that inward journey, self-reflection, and then put it out there in the world to share with people. Again, going back to the ultimate humble thing to do is be vulnerable on a wide platform. And I'm curious, like, whenever this pandemic ends, listening back to this, how like time I think time is going to treat this record very well. It's going to be a very interesting thing to watch age.
Thank you. That I had two thoughts when you were talking. One is that, I mean, in a way, this is a pandemic album, yeah. But the thing, I was on another podcast recently, and they were like, it's such a positive album.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like depressing. I mean, you know, there are sad songs, there are sad moments, but it's actually, and I think I said it before, the backdrop of despair and death and suffering and isolation of the pandemic, to be, for whatever reasons, you know, so inspired and awakened, which is what I was. It's a weird kind of juxtaposition. So you have this kind of deadening in the world and an awakening that you feel on the album. You have a negativity and isolation, and then a connectedness and a positive. So that's kind of comforting that sometimes, even in really adverse times or situations, you can have these flowers grow. I mean, in one of the songs, it's a beautiful verdant tree. And the other thing is, you know, this gives me sort of some comfort, I guess. You were talking about the pandemic, that it's affected all of us. Like, we have all been changed by it. And so that makes me feel less alone. Like, what you went through is not what I went through, but like, we've all been changed and had to like kind of figure out what the hell to do with uncertainty at that level.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's some sort of universal connection to that. Like, if that's a shared experience, then that makes it feel less lonely, right?
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a lot of connection we didn't expect over the last year, and we're going to be finding out about it for a long time. You know, we're going to kind of
totally
rediscover those things, and it'll be a point of connection for a lot of people who have not even met yet.
Yeah. And it's like one of the reasons I like sad songs is they make me feel less sad, ironically, like less lonely.
Yeah.
Like, you have a really beautiful sad song. It's like, oh, right. That's how I feel sometimes. And somebody else feels that too.
Yeah.
You know, they just like wrote about it so beautifully. And so, like, I'm not alone in the universe, actually.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. For sure. Can I ask too, speaking of like what leads up to an album history, all that stuff, as a singer-songwriter, someone who obviously expresses in their music and also has a deep appreciation, you know, for country music and the related genres.
Yeah. Roots, Americana, whatever.
Yes, there's so much of it.
All country. Yeah.
How did you find yourself like with your hooks in that music, you know? Because I also think you're obviously more tapped in than us, but that's not a stronghold of New York music necessarily either. And you're a New Yorker like us. I'm curious, just the Cliff Notes version, you know, to getting there.
Right. Arriving at that genre.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's really just like what I listened to growing up. I was, you know, I have two older brothers. I grew up outside of Boston. I probably channel Southern, like Springsteen, or like a lot of people who are not from the South. And we have a little bit of a like twang in my, you know, that I can't get away from, because it's just like kind of inhabits me based on so much what I listen to. So, you know, albums like Car Wheels on a Gravel Road, Lucinda Williams, or, you know, I mean, so much stuff. It's not even, you know, that listen to a lot of Stones. I listen to a lot of.
But you had folks in your life that encouraged it. It sounds like, right? I mean, that's
so,
part of it.
You know, partially it was like that. My brothers and people I met who had good playlists that resonated. Right? It's like, why are we drawn to what we're drawn to? Why do we prefer Robert Redford to Paul Newman as freaking great as Paul Newman is? You know, like, I just like this kind of music. That's what's inside of me. And that's the main thing I'm trying to do, is just be true to what's inside of me. And like, sometimes songwriting is getting out of the way. It's like, oh, okay, you want to come out. Like, don't think too much. It's like a delicate balance between like, holding the reins like enough, but not too tight, like kind of editing and doing the work that needs to be done to tighten and make it like good, but also getting out of the way a little bit.
Yeah. It's a very good lesson, I think, for all the
What about
folks.
you guys? Like, I'm going to put you on the spot now and say, like, if you had to say, your favorite album, could we do that? Is that just too hard? Is that too cruel?
It is. It is too cruel. And Pat,
could we do like with something that just had the biggest impact on you?
So I think probably for Pat and I, we're always going to be, and for everyone who's into music, we're always going to be giving you one of them, right? It's like, it's always, what's one of them? Because it's hard to have, for me at least, I won't speak for you, Pat. It's hard to have the one, the sort of magic bullet. Yeah. But I'll give you a funny, maybe a kind of funny example. I've probably mentioned it on the show before, but it for something about this seems like it's correct for this conversation. The full-length album I've probably listened to the most in my life is The Wallflowers' Bringing Down the Horse. And it's not like, I don't think artistically it's my most favorite album, but it came along at a point where it was really when I started to pick my own music, and it has never fully left the rotation. So I've never had a year go by where I don't listen to that album through a couple of times. And
I love that.
And there's something about it where, I also grew up outside of Boston, and there's a lot of classic rock in the air. I would describe it as that. It's like that seems to be a really something that permeates all membranes. And something about the way that album is put together, it's by the son of an all-time famous folk and rock artist, Jacob Dylan is on, that's his band. And the influences that I think they all bring to that album, some stuff that's really straight out of 1997, like rock radio, but then other stuff that harkens back, whether it's, whether it's like a kind of older bluesy style, slackier sounding acoustic guitar solo, or it's like a Wurlitzer in the background, but there's stuff that they bring in there to that album, I think, that are not of its time. And in a way, and my dad had me listening to country music growing up a lot, and a lot of country and folk. And so there was something where, I'm like, if I piece together elements that I like, it might add up to a Wallflowers album, It's maybe not the peak of any of them, but it's sort of like this crossroads of some of that music,
I love that. I feel like it's actually a really great thing. Like it's like your comfort album, like the one that you just keep, that kind of like just you spent so much time with, like your blanket or something, and you gotta return to. I would say for me, probably that's like Van Morrison, Moondance. I don't know, just like was on all the time when we were like having dinner, or Blood on the Tracks, Dylan. Just two that like just so many hundreds of hours, and like kind of feels like coming home or something when when I put that on.
I'm gonna give a runner-up album too, and I'm curious if you're familiar, is Lyle Lovett's Road to Ensenada.
I'm not familiar with it as an album, so I'm gonna have to go
check it out. It's
I'm gonna check it out.
It is also like a mid-90s album, but and I don't know everything that Lyle's done exactly, but I think it's a pretty good summation of, if you want country music but you like it to be interesting, he's all over the map on that album in a really fun, playful way, and just what a voice. The guy's just got a beautiful way of approaching a microphone, I think.
That's awesome. I have so much to do. I have so much to check out. In addition, I'm going to have to listen to all your previous episodes because I'm so into you guys.
Oh, thanks.
All right, now you,
Pat.
So I don't want to seem like I'm skirting the question. I have a hard time answering the question because for me, it's an album for who I was at certain times.
Uh-huh.
And so if I was to say right now, like in the like today, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But like looking back, my parents got me Bat Out of Hell when I was a kid, and that album art blew my mind. But
God, I love it.
and then, you know, they gave me a Led Zeppelin CD, and I was like, what is this? This is incredible. But, you know, I was a stubborn suburban teenager that was like, I'm only going to listen to pop punk. And it's like, that's the cool thing. And I can't listen to anything else. And so there's a lot of self-image via other artists.
Totally.
And I can't answer the question because I know that I've always had not small albums, but moments of, I didn't know you were allowed to do that with music. And it like broadened my spectrum. So I had a band director in middle school and high school that loved Frank Zappa. And for music class, would have us sit down, listen to a song, and try to write down all of the instruments we could hear.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was awesome. And Mr. Whitford, I know you're not listening, but you were super cool because he would ride a motorcycle and park it inside the school.
That's like definition of cool guy teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But I only bring that up to say, like, that sort of set me off on this path of, like, always ingesting and always, like, taking in. And so it's hard for me to name like a favorite album because at any given point I'm like obsessed with something that and especially with the internet now, like got super into like Brazilian samba music just because there's sounds I've never heard before. Yeah. There's melodies I've never heard before. And why really not cool. Like travel sonically and do it like that and like pull in everything I can.
If I was going to wrap that up in some sort of platitude, Pat, it is like your favorite album is probably one you haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, get out there and find it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And then there are the songs I was just thinking about, you know, I've had the experience and on this record and other records where, sorry, I keep saying record. It's really dates me album. Where it's like, I write the song and then there's some kind of heartbreak involved, you know, and then it's just like almost impossible to listen to the song, which has been hard on this record because it's like, you know, I just did a live album release show and had to, you know, re-inhabit all these songs, which, I mean, I guess I was going to ask the question, have you ever had an experience where like there was a song that was so like deep inside you in a relationship or whatever, but then there was like, if there was a rocky time in your life or death or a breakup, and then you can't listen to the song again, like for a year. I
think I know what you're asking about, and I'm like too much of a sucker for self-flagellation, you know, that like, no song has ever risen to the point of I can't listen to it because I will always fall into the trap of listening to it again and getting like very, you know, overwhelmed or emotional. Like I can never fully put anything in that category. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Pat and I have actually talked about a couple of years ago on a podcast. I talked about this song that reminds me of my mother and, you know, losing her. And that song comes on at really happy times all the time. Like it's a sort of an unavoidable song sometimes. And there's a part of me that's like, I love that. I've made peace with it. I know that sometimes I will be, you know, like watching a toilet paper commercial and start crying because this song is on, you know, it's like, and that to me is hilarious. And is this like a John Prine thing I want to say, which is like, I know I've written the perfect song if it's sad and I can laugh about it.
Dude, that's so weird. I just posted that on Twitter.
Oh, yes.
It's like, and it had this like, I'm not on Twitter that much. I mean, I'm sort of trying to learn because I have this social media guy and I'm trying, you know, it's like getting the songs out there, whatever. But it had like 130 likes. People went bananas about it because it was that John Prine quote. Yeah, like if something that should make me cry, I write and it makes me laugh, then I've like done something right or whatever. It's a great quote. I don't remember.
It's perfect.
I should have it.
But like that's my relationship with that song now. You know, it's like, it's usually funny now to me when I hear it, but it's like it's sad. You know.
Yeah. Well, right. It's kind of like what they say about comedians, right? Like you look at Robin Williams, you look at so many comedians that it's like the other side of the coin that's so closely related.
You have like
the darkness and the light,
the sort of sad clown archetype, is there.
Yeah, but as long as we can try and keep laughing about stuff, for sure.
Yeah. Pat, are there any songs you've thrown in a drawer to forget about?
That entire time I was trying to think, and it definitely happened in college over a relationship, and I don't know what band it was, so I assume it was some like MySpace band. And there, it was just you're in college, you think you're an adult, and really looking back on it, you're like, what a stupid thing to get upset about. Like, I can't listen to that song because it's our song. What a dumb, silly little thing to get upset about.
It's not so much that for me. It's more like it's actually just so emotionally powerful and evocative of a time that if I'm still trying to mend, I can't. It's like, ooh, that hurts.
Sure.
Yeah.
I might be.
That's more.
I might be more. I might be more projecting on what that individual moment in time for me is.
Right. Like for me during the pandemic, I listened to, because my daughter was playing at a time, the Taylor Swift, what was it, Folklore
album? Yeah.
It's not something that I would normally listen to, but it was just on a lot. So that song, the Bon Iver one, Bon Iver, how do you pronounce his name? Exiled, or anyway, like there are 2 or 3 songs from that album because it's so evocative of a very still raw, intense time for me that not a bad, like good,
right?
But the mix of things, I just can't like put that on yet.
Yeah,
right.
I can't hear that album. I need more space. I need more distance.
Absolutely.
There, was an album that was super important to me, and it was Brand New's "The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me," and it was produced with such an energy and like sonic spectrum, and just
Wait, who's it by?
This band called Brand New.
Okay.
And it was important to me for a very long time. And then 3 or 4 years ago, unfortunately came out that the front person of the band had sexually abused minors, and which obviously is a horrible thing. And I have this vinyl record sitting on my shelf. And, even the art I loved and found it so fascinating, and that it went into the bin. And that was like a very hard thing to do because of that connection. Well, it wasn't a hard thing to do. I was like, that's what has to be done. I know that is what I have to do. But it took time to sort of reconfigure my thinking about it, where that was very important to me. And now there will be new things that will be important to me.
Right. I mean, that is the beautiful thing, right? Even when it doesn't feel like it, there's always going to be the new inspiration, the thing that, that person or that song that makes, your heart race a little, where you're like, ooh.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Annie, thank you so much for talking with us. This has really been such a joy.
Such a pleasure.
Really,
I'm
really
jealous.
nice.
I want to do it. I want to do this with you guys.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah. It's great.
I wish I could do this podcast more. It's great.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, I'm going to go back and listen to all your previous episodes and
do.
learn about a ton of music.
Yeah, that's so
and
nice.
just if people do want to, the album is on the usual everywhere, Spotify,
Bristol
Apple.
County
As
Tides.
you guys know, downloading is way better because 100,000 streams will buy me a donut. So if you want to keep supporting artists, Bandcamp is a really good place.
We love Bandcamp.
We're big Bandcamp.
Yeah, a lot of us have our stuff there. You can listen, but then if you love a song, go ahead and download.
Buy that dang song,
Buy the dang song.
Buy the album while you're at it.
Buy the album. Yeah,
Why
get
not?
the whole damn thing. We also this season, we're donating a few bucks for every episode to a foundation or nonprofit of our guest choice. And yeah, Annie, what did you want to throw some money at this week?
Well, it's funny. I didn't say this, but I worked with nonprofits for like 12 years, 15 years before I started doing music full time. So I could have rattled off, I did civil liberties and reproductive rights and environmental justice. But the thing that's truly close to my heart and my home away from home now is a place called Jalopy Theater and School of Music. And they just do a ton of incredibly important, interesting things. They're in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and I'm on the board of directors. And like many venues, they've been struggling to keep the doors open and the lights on throughout all of this. So they're a nonprofit too. So it's tax deductible, and it's just a magical place. It's my favorite venue, and they do incredible teaching. I teach there of young people and older people. So that would be the one on my mind today.
I love
Jalopy.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
That's really great.
Yeah, and get down there and check it out. Sunny's too is another amazing little spot in Brooklyn. We got to support these little places so they don't, so that they stay alive.
For sure. We'll be donating a few bucks, and anyone listening, please look up Jalopy. Please donate if you can. Help keep these places in our city.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spread the word.
Finally, Annie, I want to know, where can people just generally keep up to date with you? You have a website that people can go to?
Yeah. It's just www.annie, like the musical, Keating, KEATING.com.
Yeah, and we'll link to that in the episode post. You can also check her out on Twitter at Annie Keating NYC or Instagram Annie.Keating. And that's all the stuff. You can follow us at repeater.show. Or at Repeater Show. Our URL is repeater.show, but at Repeater Show on Instagram and Twitter. And finally, just Annie, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. This is a delight.
What a dang treat.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I can't wait to check out all your stuff and,
thank you.
Learn about more music.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, and everybody out there, take Annie's lead. Check out more stuff. Listen to more episodes of this podcast. Subscribe to it if you enjoy it. We really do appreciate all the subscribers and any of the feedback. And until next time, hit repeat.
Repeater is hosted by Evan Ford Barden and Patrick Cartelli. Visit us online at repeater.show for live dates, hot music tips, and show archives. Theme music by the Sun Lions. Everything else by Love Nest Productions. Welcome to Repeater.
Okay. I love it.